It's almost go time. The NFL draft is right around the corner. And as we descend upon where we're going to broadcast from this week for your stream, we're getting into the last minute changes, draft ideas, trade possibilities, as well as Dane Brugler is going to sit down with me and go over the process of getting to this point to make the NFL draft happen. Welcome to Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors, NFL draft fans everywhere. I'm Ryan Tracy. Welcome to Locked On NFL Draft, your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can get us on every platform for free all the time. If you're joining us on YouTube right now, make sure you like, sub, and hit that bell. We're going to get into it. Thanks for making us your first listen. Go check out one of the other shows, Eric's Niners show, my Chief show, or any of the teams in this league. We have you covered all the way around, as it is draft week and it's starting to hit a fever pitch. We're hearing a lot of rumors. We're going to get into some of those. Dane Brugler is going to join me later. We're going to talk about the process getting up to this draft as we get ready for what is the last couple of 48-hour glimpses of who could be moving around, who could be changing something. There's a lot to go over that. I'm Ryan Tracy. I'm the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix, as well as the Draft Guide. And you can get over there and you can check it out because it's available for all of you. And when you get there, you use the code Locked On. It'll give you a nice discount on my draft guide, my team that has put together film, analytics of physiology, as well as production. We put it all into one total package, and that comes through as we get ready for this draft. A lot going on there, and if you want to see my board, it is free and available for you over at NFL33.com. That's my Substack, as well as some of my other team members as well. You can see the board laid out by position, as well as by round, about where I have everyone graded. And that's what it comes down to tonight, is that we've gotten here to Dallas, Texas. We'll be broadcasting from here. You'll be able to watch us on all of the Tegna streams, all the Locked On Network shows, on Locked On NFL, as well as our own channel on YouTube. You'll be able to see us wire to wire in all of our content from our local hosts, as well as our Locked On Now folks. Breaking news. Eric and I will be giving you the breakdown of the pick-by-pick plays. That's a lot that goes into it. And as we get stirred into it right now, tonight, there are some changes going on. We hear about teams willing to move up, teams looking to find trade partners, and that's really what these last couple of days are. The board should have been put away quite a bit ago. We're going to talk some process here with Dane Brugler later in the show. But for all intents and purposes, last week, the coaches and the scouts should have gone home because the board should have been set. As they work through that process in the offseason, that's where it kind of comes to culmination. You finish up the top 30 visits that you have, and you kind of stack the board. And that's what I've done as well. Again, you can catch that on NFL33.com. Now, at that point, you have what your goals are, what your expectations are, where you see guys slotted through the round by round plan. But that's where things get a little bit different. We're hearing tonight rumors. And I don't generally like to go through rumors, but since Crocker isn't in town yet, I get to do the show by myself today. So, hey, that's always fun. And what it comes down to is that we're hearing bits and pieces about people. Maybe it's smoke, maybe it's not. You never know this point in the process. But some talk about the edge rushers at the top, the tackles at the top, who's desperate for quarterback play and who isn't. And it really comes down to how many teams really have Trayvon Walker as the top of their board. And evidently it's coming around that it's more and more. And so the trade up maneuvers are becoming more intricate. Could you see the Jets trade out of 4? That seems to be the hot topic tonight. And the more that I hear about it, the more that it makes sense. If someone feels that they need to jump Carolina, and if Carolina feels that they need to then go up over the Giants, depending on if they're trying to take that tackle or that edge rusher. Those are the two that at this point, in what is for most a down draft because of the quarterback stock, to see that kind of jockeying for position where you might be giving up a fourth, a third? Could they even give up a second to move from 6 to 4 in order to thwart the New York Giants? It is a possibility, and we're hearing about some of that now. Is their target going to be Evan Neal? That's what I'm hearing tonight. That doesn't mean that it's locked in. It just means that it's one of the possibilities. But this is the magic hour. There's 48 hours to go as I sit down to record this here. And a lot can change just in those couple of days, because you've already put out, if you are one of the GMs, you've put out some feelers. You've talked to guys that either came up on your staff or you came up on theirs, and you have some kind of connection. You have an idea of where teams are trying to get and if they're willing to move out of their positions. And it's very strange to think that for a year where the quarterbacks are not the focus, that there could be more activity in this draft than we've seen in the last 5 in terms of trade outs, maneuvering around the first round, and a lot of options that are still to come. It comes down to, where do you think you have to go to get your value out of this draft, even if you're not a team that's looking for a quarterback? If you are, you happen to be in a bad position that you have to move around quite a bit. If there's a guy that you like, you got to go get him. But in between that, there's a lot of back and forth where if you can move out, particularly if you're New York and you already have 2 first-round picks, like, there's a lot of ground to be gained by moving back. If you're not somebody, if you're somebody that's already made the investment in the quarterback ranks, that is a severe advantage. And it seems like the churn is picking up here tonight as we move forward. So we're going to get into that. Who could be moving where? Who's interested? And that's really what it comes down to. I'm kind of interested to see that as well. And we'll get to that coming up here in just a bit, but I do want to give you guys a heads up, because if you want to take care of Mother's Day, there's one way to do it, and that is fine jewelry from Blue Nile. They have everything that you need for giving a great gift to either your wife or your mother, girlfriend, whoever it happens to be, the mother in your life for all intents and purposes. And right now they're giving you a great deal. It's over at BlueNile.com, and the code is for Locked On Sports. All of your listeners, all of our listeners, everybody involved in the draft, if you want $50 to $500 off an incredible gift, you can go do that. It's exclusive through Mother's Day. So you have to use the code Locked On, and you have to do it before Mother's Day. And every order ships fully insured and ships free and in a discreet package, so you don't give away the surprise. So you can shop stress-free and get your Mother's Day recipient something really special. There's a lot going on, and you can find it all over at Blue Nile, because that's where everything gets done. So go check that out. Find your favorite piece and something special for her. Go to BlueNile.com today. As we sit here and tilt about who could be moving around, a couple of teams have started to surface. One being the aforementioned Carolina Panthers, maybe moving up from their 6th spot. That is very, very tough to hear, because you would think if you're at 6 that you have a very good chance of getting the player that you need. If you're not in that position and you are on a staff that feels that they're under the gun and then they have to move around, it is something that you have to consider. And what we found out today is that Scott Fitterer has actually told Sam Darnold that we're looking at taking a quarterback. Is that the truth? I don't know. Is it true that they're going to move somewhere to take a quality player? Absolutely. It might be the tackle to actually help Sam Darnold, but it could be the quarterback as well. And so as those little details start to leak out, some is subterfuge and meant to throw teams off, and some is a little bit of a notice to the rest of the league that, hey, I'm looking to make a deal. If you have something that I need, we can put a deal together. Other teams that are in the mix, the Cardinals at 23, I think that they have some good options, but they may not feel that that's exactly what they want to do because of what we're going to see. We all feel we're going to see in the top half of the draft. They may feel that moving around is the best thing for them to do. So they're going to have to try to get up a little bit. Can they give up a couple? They can. I don't know how much draft capital they're willing to part with, but it makes sense that if you have a narrowed down group of targets, that you have to go do what you have to do that. The other two that I have already made a deal, and the Saints and the Eagles seem to be very active again. And what we heard originally was that we're not putting a package to go up and get a quarterback. And that's what we were hearing from the Saints. Now we're starting to hear something a little bit different, that there's more and more interest in going up higher in the draft, packaging those two picks together. Now, the Eagles have some picks too, and I feel like they are more likely to move back, especially when there's a lot of suitors. And so these two things go hand in hand. Tonight, we're hearing that the Eagles are into some talks. Yesterday, it was the Vikings that we're hearing maybe wanted to move out of 12. That has calmed down for all of my sources today. But what I'm hearing is that Eagles and Saints are kind of battling back and forth. They're right in the same range. Obviously, they've already done a deal, and they have to try to get to the point where they feel that they can get the guy that they need. Are they both going for the same guy? We don't know yet, but it could be the same position. I will tell you that. And that rotates back to who are the teams that really want to leapfrog some of those? Who have the more desperate needs? And the two teams that come out tonight are the Packers and the Chiefs. Both interested in wide receivers, both interested in the Drake Londons and the Jameson Williams and the uber talent within this draft at the wide receiver position, because they both need to replace who were two of the top three wide receivers that they both traded away this particular offseason. In letting Adams and Hill go, both the Packers and the Chiefs have put themselves in a position where they have to get to a spot in this draft that they feel they can make a huge impact, not a small one, an enormous impact on what their offense is able to do. Now, in order to do that, maybe it is the Jets that are willing to move back. Maybe it is the Giants, especially if they do get jumped for someone that they're targeting, that they're willing to move back from that as well. Does it take going up into the top 10 for the Packers and the Chiefs? I don't necessarily think so. I think they can get something done. I do see a little bit of a fall for Jameson Williams in that I'm talking 15 instead of 10. If you call that a fall, that's fine. If for a guy who's just coming off an ACL in his last collegiate game, that's pretty good shape to be in. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to work out for him. And the team that wants to get him the most is going to be eager to give away the assets that they have to in order to get that done. Now, on the flip side, there's two prospects, both on the edge, actually three prospects that I'm hearing are falling down, at least in terms of our perception here on the outside. Maybe the teams have already arrived at these decisions, but they are starting to get here. One being George Karlaftis, who seems to have a few suitors that really do value him there at the tail end of the first round, but a number that have put him farther down the board. I do see a bit of a fall for him. I see him in the middle of the second round. That's where I have him stacked, but I could see a little bit of a fall there as well. The interesting one comes in the name of Kayvon Thibodeau, who, if he doesn't go in the first, say, 9 picks in particular, you could see a tumble. We're waiting to see those decisions and see if that solidifies here. We'll try to have more for you tomorrow, because that rumor is starting to pick up a little bit of steam as well. And maybe it's the off-field stuff. Maybe it's the inconsistency on the field as well. His pressure rate is still very good, and you have to give him credit for that. The last one, Adam Anderson from Georgia, is now off of boards after the events of Tuesday, so I think that's pretty safe to say. So I think what we have to do is take all that into account and really talk about the process that it takes to get here. So coming up next, we're going to talk with Dane Brugler, who sat down with me the other day to go through part of that overall as we get ready for this last 24-hour push, getting into the NFL draft. We're going to talk to him next. But first, I got to tell you about Built Bar, because as I'm traveling, they always sustain me. I pack a few with me, and hopefully on this draft show, you'll be able to watch the stream on the Locked On NFL channels all over YouTube as well as Roku, and you'll be able to see us eat some of them, because they're going to help us out and fuel us for this draft. It's going to be a long broadcast. They have all the flavors covered in real chocolate. They are uber nutritious. They can be a meal replacement, or they can just be a nice supplement. They have 130 to 150 calories a piece, low sugar, 4 net carbs is the way that it works out, and 17 grams of protein. They have some of the best flavors out there as well. Croc loves the puffs, and he likes to snack, so that is a good sign. His endorsement, I think, goes a long way. I prefer the ones that last a little bit longer. I like the coconut brownie and the ones that have the protein that keeps you going through the day. It is a nice adjunct to what you're doing nutritionally to try to get through your workouts or try to just live healthier. It's good either way, and Built wants to help you. So go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off of your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at your next order at Built.com. Next, we're going to get back with Dane Brugler of The Athletic, the writer of The Beast, the best, largest draft guide out there. And that's from someone who produces their own draft guide. Again, you can find mine over at rogueapc.com. If you do, make sure you check out that code LOCKED ON so that you get your discount. But Coming up next, Dane Brugler. We're going to get into it here a little bit here on Locked On NFL Draft. Welcome back, everybody. Our special time with Dane Brugler of The Athletic. You've known him, you've read him. If you're not, I don't know what you're doing, but it's done now, right? Dane, you're ready for the draft. Now you can just sit here and talk to the media types. How are you keeping up with all of this?
Hey, this is the best time of the year. The haze in the barn. We're ready to go. We feel like we've done all the work. And now we're getting to the point where pretty soon we'll be talking about the fits and recapping and, when the dust settles, where these guys end up. But we're not quite there yet. We still talk about the fits, still talk about what we think is going to happen. There's still a lot we don't know. I mean, the quarterbacks are very much a wild card in this draft, how that's going to play out. And there's a lot of interesting storylines. So this is a fun part of the year.
This is my favorite too, because I always like to take this time, we've all put out our guys. We're all kind of ready, but I look back a couple of months, maybe 10 weeks or so, and see how things have changed. And I know it's the season of smoke screens and all that, but has this particular draft cycle surprised you with all the volatility around the quarterbacks, all the talk that, hey, we're not going to see one in the first round. This class isn't ready. And now we're still talking about, could Detroit really do something at 2? Is that the volume of movement this year surprise you?
Not really, just because I think, we knew from the start this was not going to be a great quarterback year. And so because of that, we've seen, all the possible scenarios we've gone through. We've gone from Malik Willis being the number 2 pick to maybe he's there at 20 for the Steelers. And everything in between, from Kenny Pickett and hit where he could be, Desmond Ridder going from probably a second or third rounder to now good chance he goes in the first. So some of it's catching up to how NFL teams specifically think. But here's the thing: NFL teams are as split on these quarterbacks as the rest of us. I mean, there's no consensus on these guys. It's not like there's one quarterback that we look at and say, okay, he's with NFL teams, the definite number 1 guy. There's no consensus, and there's no consensus order of it's Pickett and then Willis and then Ridder and then Corral and then Howell. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Some teams are going to look at these quarterbacks and they might have it the opposite. So I think a lot of assumptions are being made with these quarterbacks. I hear, if Willis, makes it to 20, we know he won't get past 20. How do you know that? I think just because people have spoken into existence, I think that people think that it's Steelers Willis fit is just, it's going to happen, or, it's something that the Steelers wouldn't be able to pass on. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's the volatility of these quarterbacks is very much a real thing from team to team. And I think people need to be open-minded to that.
It seems like that's the number one underlying thing is it is team to team. There's going to be outliers that maybe 31 teams don't have a guy in this round, but the one's going to do it, and that's going to get it done. So for me, I'm trying to figure out, right? Every year, that's all it takes. So what I'm trying to figure out is who reaps the benefits of that. And if everybody's kind of waiting around for it to start and they don't go off the board, is it the wide receivers that get artificially inflated or not even artificially, that then become the next value picks in terms of positional need? Like, who reaps the benefits of the quarterbacks not being as strong as a year or two ago?
Yeah, and I think wide receivers is a good place to start. And just one last thing on the quarterbacks, even though I this is not a great class, they're still going to go. I mean, we're still going to see probably at least 2, maybe 3 go in the top 20. It's going to happen. It happens every year. Why should this year be any different? So I still think these quarterbacks are going to go. But I do think receiver, we're going to see, we could see a 5, 6, we could see as many as 7 or 8. It's possible when you look at the teams around the league and how they want to get better on the perimeter. They want to get better across the formation, inside receivers. They want to score points, and receivers do that probably better than any other position, non-quarterback. So we're going to see teams look to get younger and cheaper at the receiver position. And this year has a really good crop of pass catchers. And I think, in my opinion, it starts with my top tier is Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Drake London. Those three guys at the top. That's my top tier personally. That second tier, that's where you have Chris Olave. That's where you have Treylon Burks. That's where you have Jahan Dotson. I think Sky Moore, George Pickens are also in that second tier. And then I think there's maybe a drop off and then another tier with your Christian Watsons and a few other guys. But it's a top heavy position this year. I think I think there's a drop off once you get outside the second, third round. I don't love the wide receiver talent on day 3. There's a few guys I really like, but I don't love the overall depth. But the guys are going to go early in the first and second rounds. Those guys are the types of receivers that teams look at and say, okay, they can help us pretty quickly. They're going to be a big part of what we do on offense. And so we're going to see the receiver position fly off the board.
I'm really interested to see the way that goes, because I kind of feel about the corner class, like you were just talking about the wide receiver class. If they all go early, I wonder if the corners get pushed down. How do you look at the corner group as itself?
I would agree. I mean, I think it's in the top 5. If you want to, power rank the best positions this year in terms of overall strength, depth, the most talent, I think corner belongs somewhere in the top 5. It starts obviously with Sauce Gardner, Trent McDuffie, Derek Stingley. Those guys are going to go early. The question will be, okay, what other corners go in the first? Andrew Booth's been really banged up. He had surgery, quad strain, double hernia surgery. Is that enough? We haven't seen him. He couldn't work out the combine, couldn't work out the pro day. Could that knock him out of the first round? It's possible. Do we see a Kyer Elam go in the first round? Do we see a Kyler Gordon go in the first round? So a lot of question marks, I think, with these corners after those first 3, where exactly they go. But if they don't go in the first, they'll go pretty early in the second. And I think the corner position does stretch a little bit. I'm a big fan of, a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt from Nebraska on day 2 and what he offers. I think there's plenty of corners in this draft that you feel like add them to the rotation and you feel like you're getting a pretty good player.
I want to ask you about 2 of them in particular, because I have this working theory. When you have Sauce on one side of the field, what do you have to weather as the quote unquote other guy for Kobe Bryant and for Kyler Gordon in particular? Do you find that the maturation of them as players gets sped up by the number of targets that they get because they're going away from the other guys on their roster? Or do you think that it's just the luck of the draw? You're going to develop however you develop?
Yeah, no, that's certainly a fair thing to look at, because Sauce Gardner saw 11% of the defensive targets this past year at Cincinnati. Only 11. Teams stayed away from him. They said, we'll take our chances with the other guy. And Kobe Bryant more than stepped up to the plate. He won the Jim Thorpe Award as the top defensive back in college football this year, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. I think there's a lot to like with Bryant. Now, to me, he's more of a third round type of player. You like the size, 6'1.5", 195. Not the best athlete in terms of, especially at the corner position in the NFL by NFL standards. He had a 4.5, 4.40 at the combine, got a little bit better at the pro day. It was 4.47. But you look at the 3 cone, 7.31. You look at the vertical, 33 inches. So he's not lighting it up when you talk about the athletic numbers, but you watch the tape and you see a pretty good player. You see a guy very controlled in his movements. He finds ways to stay connected. Love the ball production. Double-digit passes defender 3 of the last 4 years, 10 interceptions over his career, including 7 the last 2 years. So he's a guy that you point to and say, all right, he was tested. He was thrown at quite a bit. And I don't care what conference you're talking about. If you're being targeted as much as Kobe Bryant was, it's a chance for you to make plays, and he certainly did that.
Folks, that's Dane Brugler from The Athletic. You can find all his work over there, as well as make sure you hit the podcast. Don't miss that part of it. Dane, thank you for all your time. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks, Brian.